Alien bacteria is in orbit around the Earth. I came across this yesterday on a video and I wanted to check it out. So I went online, checked some details, made some notes, and this is what I found out. On the outside of the International Space Station, orbiting around the Earth about 400 kilometres up, there's bacteria on the outside. Some they've put there as experiments, and some was found there. And it's thriving. How can it thrive in the vacuum of space with the huge temperature changes and no water? Well, for water to be water, you only need to be at 0.006 of an atmosphere. What's one atmosphere? An atmosphere or bar is 14.7 psi. So for water to be water, it only needs to be at a very, very low pressure. It's also a low temperature. In fact, it can go as far down as what's called the triple point of water, which is the point at which water can either be a gas, a liquid, or a solid. It literally, minuscule changes can change it from one to another. So, and these bacteria are able to form thicker skins around themselves, thicker cell walls. That slight pressure can help to keep moisture as moisture. What they feed on, I don't know. I've not, in the research I did yesterday, I didn't find anything. But these bacteria, and there's three of them, in fact, there's bacteria and fungi. The three bacteria that are mentioned, it gives details, but we won't have a clue what they are, started off as terrestrial bacteria, the ones that in this study. But they have changed so much, they've got thicker, they're able to resist the radiation. Radiation normally breaks down DNA. They're able to resist this, and they're able to repair their own DNA. These have changed so much that they are not the same as anything found on Earth. They are therefore their own subspecies or species. I'm not entirely sure the difference. This is not found on Earth. Therefore, that is alien bacteria. Now, what precisely is an alien? We class an alien as something that isn't from Earth. So when the men landed on the moon in the 1970s, in the 60s and 70s, they were aliens on the moon. So if there was some type of life form living on the moon, they would see aliens. The people would be alien to them, which is actually very interesting, because if you look at Neil Armstrong, if you do Neil A and do it backwards, it's alien. Anyway, they've also done studies with this bacteria on the outside of the International Space Station. There's an area where they can put experiments that are open to the elements. And they've had bacteria that survived at least 3 years in the open elements. And they've surmised that if there's some bacteria that's on a rock in space, if you're just a little bit below the surface, so you've got slight pressure and you're not as affected by the high and low temperatures, they could survive there for a long, long time. Is that how life on Earth started? The Earth formed 4.5 billion years ago, and by about 3.9 billion years ago, there's bacteria. They found evidence of this from 3.5 to 3.7 billion years ago, and with the amount that they found, they've surmised that it's probably a lot greater in abundance, so therefore it had started earlier. So those are the general assumptions. But what is interesting is at the time, Earth had a carbon dioxide atmosphere, just like Mars. And it wasn't until about 700 million years ago that some bacteria started producing oxygen. This oxygen killed off most of the life forms that were on the Earth at the time, bacteria. And the sort of life that we know today, plants, humans, insects, everything, none of that started until 541 million years ago. In fact, when you look into it, within 5 million years, animals had arms and legs. They were the carapace type animals, so they had, they all lived in the sea. They were the hard-shelled. But So, if you think of lobsters and crabs, they're earliest relatives, but other plants and animals as well, other micro life. But what DNA does it take to form a creature like that? And in fact, it's estimated that the horseshoe crab came into existence within about 5 to 10 million years of this particular point in time. How do you code DNA to create hinges in the outer skeleton, the muscles, the nerves, the brain to control it all? Horseshoe crabs have 3 eyes, one on either side of the head, and one that looks behind it. How? Why? How do you create a brain? How do you create central nervous system? How do you create the data that runs the brain? All of that occurred in a very short period of time. But I was fascinated to see this bacteria that is basically alien. How similar is it to the bacterial life that's on Mars? I don't know. But that exists as well. One thing I forgot to mention. There's been a study on the age of DNA. Scientists have looked at DNA and they've realised that over time it doubles over a particular time period, just like computer technology increasing every 2 years following the Moore's law. Moore law. Well, these two studies both came back to a date that was fairly similar, that DNA began between 9.5 and 10 billion years ago. The Earth is only 4.5 billion years old.